Welcome all to our latest Wikid Creator Interview. We've haven't done one of these in a while, but it's really awesome to introduce our latest creator to the Wikid lineup. So this is going to be really exciting. Today we're going to be talking with the newest addition to the Wikid Publishing lineup. And so without further ado, we have to introduce you to Michael Nunneley from Omen Comics and the Revelation Comics.
Hey guys, how's it going? Glad to be here.
Good. Yes, we're happy to chat with you. And of course, as people may not have heard, you have joined us as the latest edition, and we're just really excited to bring your comics to all our readers and to a whole bunch of new people, and see what they look like in print. It's going to be really fun, the whole journey. So we're really excited to have you with us.
Yeah, excited to be part of the Wikid crew.
Excellent. Yes. Well, thank you again. We appreciate you taking some time to talk to us today. Of course, we want to get into all the nitty-gritty details of comics and comics and all that great stuff. But before we dive into that, can you give us a brief introduction on who you are and how you got started in comics?
Okay. Again, my name is Michael Nunneley, and I started Omen Comics back in 2018, around May. But I have been actually I created my first comic when I was 12 years old.
Really?
Yeah, and actually some of the characters that I used in those early stories when I was 12, I'm still using today in Omen Comics.
They've survived the long journey.
right. I did try an avenue or two other than comics before this.
Nice.
I played in a band in Eugene Springfield area for about 5 years, but decided that my real passion was in writing.
And so from there, did you jump right into comics, or did you experiment with other writing before that?
I did a little bit of just like regular prose work, but my love for comics eventually kicked in. And I mean, I really love the medium of comics. I think that, like with comics, you can do things. I mean, comics are somewhere in between a book and a movie, but you can do things with comics that you can't do with either of those mediums.
So
and
true.
I love working in that medium and creating in it. It's really more fun, I think, than writing prose.
Yeah, and it's really interesting you bring it up because it is like the combination of prose and like visual mediums like movies and things. But it's almost more rewarding because when you get the pages back, it's like it's the thing that was directly out of your mind on the page. Whereas from what I can imagine, if you're working on a movie, depending on the size, it's like there's so many hands. By the time it gets to the screen, is it exactly what you envisioned? So it's interesting. Right? It's kind of a more personal in a way.
Totally. And there's nothing better than that feeling when you get those the pages back from your artist and you see the things that once existed only in your mind now on page. It's just, I mean, that is an indescribable feeling.
True. That is true. I think it's one of the best things about making comics for sure. Yeah, it's just such a fun endeavor. But that's great. No, I mean, I love that you've kind of were like trying to find exactly where you wanted to go with writing and finally ended up on comics because of your passion for comics. So have you been reading comics your whole life then?
Yeah. I started reading comics back in 1984.
Nice. So you've been with the comics for a long time. It's not something that later in life.
I did take a little hiatus there for about 10 years in the middle.
Oh wow. Okay, interesting. Yeah, that is kind of funny. Like I similarly like read comics a lot growing up, and then I took somewhat of a break, and then later in like my 20s or whatever, got back into comics and just never stopped since then. Just keep reading,
Right,
so it's,
right.
Yeah. No, I totally get you there. Were you more of a superhero, or were you always into the horror genres?
Well, in comics, it was more of the superhero stuff, but I kind of preferred the stuff that was more superhero horror infused.
Nice.
Like doesn't necessarily have to be horror, I guess, but something with a little bit darker of an edge, you know, like for instance, like Spawn or Daredevil, or you know, something that has a little bit more of a little bit of darkness in it, you know, a little bit of violence, a little bit of evil in there somewhere.
Make
that
you
they're
think a little bit
with.
in a new way.
Yeah.
I always love, that's what I always loved about you know, especially about those horror comics back, you know, 80s, 90s, and whatnot. They always tried to make you think. Like it was there at the end of the day, I always wanted to make you think about something. There's always a point to the horror, which I always appreciated. You know, I always thought that was interesting, like the old Vertigo comics and whatnot. Did you ever like get into Swamp Thing or John Constantine, Hellblazer stuff?
Oh, actually, Swamp Thing and Hellblazer are my two favorite Vertigo titles.
That's awesome, dude. I
particularly really love John Constantine.
Me too, man. I have a soft spot for that guy.
Although, I mean, I gotta say they got a little weird in the Swamp thing with the when Abby and Swamp Thing wanted to have sex, but they couldn't. So so they did they got John Constantine to come in, and Swamp Thing kind of, you know, possessed his body, and that was just a little too weird for me. You know, like I can't imagine the girl being like, "Yeah, I'll totally sleep with this other guy and pretend it's you, no problem at all."
There's a great line from the Deceased book where Constantine brings that up, like to the people, like Swamp. You know, this back in the day, we did the same. Swamp, yeah, we don't talk about that. We don't bring that up. So yeah, probably for the best.
You know, they played around with that. Yeah. They played around with that a little bit with Deadman too, when he was dating Dove. Remember?
That's interesting. Well, that's great, man. I love that you kind of come back from this. You know, you got the classic superhero stuff, but you're also always been influenced by the horror stuff as well.
Yeah. One of the first movies I remember watching is A Nightmare on Elm Street.
How old were you?
Yeah, my dad didn't do the whole wading me in slowly like with Gremlins or something. He threw me right into the deep end of horror.
Oh my god. Wow, that's wild. So you were pretty early on in your life when you're kind of exposed to those movies and stuff.
Yeah, actually, I got a funny story about that. I have a really good memory, and when I was a kid, it was particularly sharp. I watched A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 when I was a kid. I think I was I want to say 7 or 8. And in class at school, they had this thing, journal time. And instead of, you know, writing about my day or what things I liked or whatever, like the rest of the kids, I was actually writing out the script for A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 verbatim from memory.
Oh my god.
when my teacher read it, she freaked out. She called in my parents and said, "This kid is disturbed and he needs to get some help." And it was funny.
So you were destined to, in other words, you're destined to write horror.
Right.
Well, that totally makes sense why you eventually wanted to start writing your own horror stories. And was it always a plan to turn, you know, these comics into a shared universe, or was that something that came later on?
Oh yeah, it was totally the plan. I had been working on what became the Omenverse for years, putting little things together, working on different characters and everything, and it was actually one giant story that I couldn't tell fluidly in a single title, so I had to break it up, and that's why we ended up with 6 titles.
Oh, okay, that totally makes sense. Yeah, like originally was going to be one big epic. It just didn't feel like it really make it work that way.
Right. It was too much. There was too much cutting from this to this to this to this throughout each issue, and it was just too confusing, I think.
Too hard to follow.
Totally.
Yeah, I could see that. Interesting. So then that's where they decided to break it up into multiple titles and kind of do it that way. Now I'm going to share out this, put up this image here on the screen. This is kind of a splash image of a, you know, just a ton of the different characters that you guys have in your Omen universe here. And we should say off the top that you have two different imprints or comic lines or brands, however you want to call it. You have Omen Comics, which is the shared universe, and then you have a Revelations Comics, which are standalone stories. Is that right?
Right. We wanted, with Revelation Comics, we wanted to have an avenue where we could tell stories outside of the Omenverse. I mean, we all got other stories to tell besides this stuff, and we needed a place to do it.
Interesting. And with the Omenverse being kind of this really finely crafted thing, you didn't feel you could just put something random off the corner. It really needed to be its own separate thing.
No. I want the readers to know that if it says Omenverse or Omen Comics on it, it's all going to be part of the same story.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Now I do love these characters and their depictions are so great. You work with the same artist on all the titles, and forgive me. Can you pronounce his name for me?
Tosin Awasika.
Tosin, yes, and so how did you first start working, and how did you meet Tosin?
I used to run a comic book magazine, an online comic book magazine called Chico Comics Page.
Nice, that's awesome.
And I met him doing interviews. I did like artist spotlights and writer spotlights and stuff, and I interviewed him for one of those spotlights.
Really?
And when I decided I wanted to start doing comics, I approached him about maybe doing mine.
Wow. And from there, he signed on and has been working on it ever since.
Yeah. I mean, after he did one or two comics, it just felt like it wouldn't be the Omenverse if somebody else was drawing this. Like he really came to define the look of the Omenverse.
True, it's definitely got his unique artistic style to it, and it does have a shared universe quality because of that. I feel like.
For sure. It all has that same feel to it. The same, he has his own coloring and stuff too. So I mean, the aesthetic across the board is really the same, and it gives it that familiar feel to it.
What's nice too is looking at this image, you really get a sense of the variety and of the characters here. Like it makes you want to learn more about all these different characters and their stories and where they fit into this world.
Nice. That was kind of the idea there. Yeah.
Yes, you guys pulled that off there. Like the one of my favorite ones. I always draws my eye here. It says dude with the gay helmet. He looks
yes, that Anarchy Bill.
What a great name too. Yeah, he looks like a fun character. Can't wait to learn about that dude. And that dude over in the brown coat with the hat, he looks very interesting. They all just kind of they all have this look to them like, oh yeah, I have a story to tell. I have a whole backstory, and you're just gonna have to wait and find out what it is.
Right. One of the hardest things for me actually as a writer is because I have so much content already prepared. It's hard for me to dole it out a little bit at a time. I want to just be like, here, have the whole thing. And,
Oh, that's fun. No, that totally makes sense. Yes. And speaking of which, we've talked a little bit about the Omenverse as a whole, but I figured we can go ahead and talk a little bit about each individual title. Let people know what's coming up soon from what's on now and digital and all that kind of good stuff.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so in this case, why don't we go ahead and start with the comic? Oops, I have the image up here. Let's go and talk a little bit about the Gallows Men. Tell us a little about Gallows Men #1.
Gallows Men. Now, the Gallows Men has a little bit of history to it. I'd like to go into. Now, you think about. I'm kind of a history buff. I really get into that stuff. But I really love exploring, like in my mind, kind of like going through my own little journey of what it would be like to be there. And I was thinking about the Spanish Inquisition specifically. And now, granted, a lot of stuff was happening that was really horrible, coming down from both kings as well as the church during that time period. And what made me think of the create the Gallows-Men was wondering what it would be like to be one of those men that had to do the torturing, that had to do the killing, that had to do all that stuff that the church and state was asking them to do, and whether or not they would have some kind of moral issue with the stuff that they were being asked to do, and if they wouldn't eventually somehow rise up against that. And that is the basis of what is the Court of the Black Hood. They're essentially um, gallowsmen, executioners of various sorts, that got together originally to form a guild in order to help make money. But they eventually, like I said, had moral issues with what they were being asked to do, and it became not about money, but about needing to do something about the church and state. They needed to do something about people that couldn't be touched, that couldn't be talked to, that couldn't be reached by regular people, that they were able to do whatever they want. And in order to enforce these things, these ideals that they had, they created the Gallows-Men, and that is the headsman, the executioner, and the hangman.
And they carry out their duty with a fierceness and a swiftness, I imagine.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And they're all from different backgrounds. They specialize in different weapons. Like Hangman uses a rope, and he specializes in a specific type of martial arts called I believe it's Hoji Jitsu, where they specifically use ropes to fight. And then there's Executioner who uses the two 1911 45s, right? And then there's the headsman with the katana. Now his katana is actually a mythical weapon. It has certain powers. It knows when someone is guilty, and when it is in Japanese letters along the blade, it glows red in with the Japanese word guilty. And after headsman kills him, it absorbs the blood, and the penance is then paid.
Wow, that's pretty awesome, man. I love that. That's really interesting. Yeah. And this you gotta tell me, does this have any kind of TMNT influences, or am I reading too much into it?
No, it definitely does. I was a huge TMNT fan when I was a kid. So I mean that was a general formula I was going with. You can tell with the different colors for each one, and each
and the weapons. Yeah, exactly. I was thinking, man. That's interesting, man. I love that.
Huge TMNT fan.
That's great. I love your influences again shining through to the comic there. That's very cool.
Actually, speaking of TMNT, I have a story there.
Really?
Yeah. Back when I was running the Chico Comics page, I interviewed Kevin Eastman.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, and that was huge for me. I mean, I was TMNT was one of the first things I really got fanatical about when I was a kid, and so I'm talking to Kevin Eastman, and we're talking about his origins and our favorite stuff and everything, and I bring up IDW's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles title, and I say that's actually my favorite origin story for the Turtles. And there's like this silence over the phone, and Kevin goes, "Yeah, well, actually Tom Waltz came up with that."
No, really.
So I'm like, my face kind of, you couldn't see because I was on the phone, but my face went like white. I was like, oh my God, epic fail.
That's hilarious. Wow, that's pretty amazing though, dude. That would be really cool. I bet. That sounds like it was really awesome.
Oh, it was. We talked for a good 40 minutes.
Nice, man. Wow,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Nice. Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
bet.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, what were you gonna say?
Just back to the Gallowsman there. The Gallowsman is a title where it's not just about the Gallowsmen themselves. There's two stories going along in the Gallowsman title, and that's about the Gallowsmen themselves and with Patrick O'Leary. Patrick O'Leary is well, you've heard the term emotional vampire, I'm sure, but I've taken this to, shall we call it, a horrific level. Um, Patrick feeds off of intense emotions, especially like hate and fear and love, really, really strong emotions. He feeds off of them on a nourishment level, like he can live off of them. And he's also rather antisocial and kind of screwed up in the head. So he has no compunctions with killing people at all and doing it rather violently. But one thing he likes to do is to play with his food.
Yeah, so is he like a serial killer?
Is he like a what?
Is he essentially like a serial killer?
Yes. Essentially, we talk about it in Gallowsman #1 a little bit. One of the nurse, he's in a mental hospital at the beginning there, and one of the nurses is talking about how Patrick once ate his eyeball out of his face. And while he's sitting there chewing on the guy's eyeball, he's smiling like he wants to eat the other one.
Yum. Yo, we gotta finish what you started, man. Can't leave food on the plate after all.
That's right. That's right. So with Gallowsman, unlike the other 5 titles, that horror, visceral horror specifically specifically seems to come up a lot in that title.
That when you said that was for Gallowsman?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Do you kind of play around with different genres of horror between the titles?
Yeah. For instance, in the White Druid and Michael Nero title, it's more of a like a paranormal, supernatural type of horror, right? And then when you get into Omen, it's more of like how would I describe that? More of like a religious based horror, where we're talking about a battle between heaven and hell.
That's pretty awesome, man. I like that. It's kind of giving me some Hellblazer vibes there.
Right. There's definitely some influence there. Omen was the character I kind of built the Omenverse around.
So is he like one of the more important characters, would you say?
He's definitely one of the more important characters. Not that I don't want to give the impression that there are unimportant characters. Omen is definitely a central character, though. A lot of the apocalyptic themes that I discuss in Omen Comics come from the Omen Comics title and kind of reverberate from there.
Interesting. And so with Omen Comics, what is that one what is that like? What is the main story of that one involve?
Well, the main theme of Omen is actually redemption. Frank Wade, the guy who becomes Omen, was I refer to him in the comics as the military boogeyman. He is whispered among talks of other soldiers that are like, it's, you know how you tell the kids the scary stories to keep them in line or whatever. Well, people talked about Frank Wade. Soldiers talked about Frank Wade like that. Like he was something to be feared. That if they stepped out of line, Frank Wade would come get them, kind of a thing. And well, the fact is, you cannot hurt other people. You especially cannot participate in war without it having a drastic effect on you as a person. It's just unavoidable. It changes you. It affects you drastically. And in Frank's case, it turned his soul very dark. He started to lose his lines of, well, I won't cross this line. I won't cross this line. It came to be, you know what, whatever you ask me to do, that's what I'm going to do. And so essentially he earned himself a place in hell with that lifestyle. But as he dies, he gives his life to save the lives of his unit. And that, according to biblical law, is the ultimate sacrifice. It is laying down your life for your friends, and no, there is no greater love than that. And so, for that reason, he is given a shot at redemption, and that is if he wears the Omen armor and he fights the sin demons and the armies of hell.
Nice, man. I love that. That's a pretty good one. So this is him here on the cover. Is that right? He's wearing the armor.
Yep, that's him.
Very nice.
Now, what's particularly interesting about this is that, and I can't go too much into this because it would be spoilers. But I want to say that everything about Omen is seeking redemption, including the armor itself.
So there's a bit of a sentience to the armor, perhaps.
Yes.
Interesting. That's a nice twist there. Yeah, that's great. And so how is this then playing with the other comics? Are you going to be doing any kind of crossovers or anything of that nature? Anything like that planned?
Oh yeah, they got major. The characters interact between the titles. So there's definitely that going on, but we have a whole phase 1 planned that's going to end in a big giant event called Tetrad Omega, and that's going to be a crossover of all the titles. Everybody in the comics is going to get involved in that one.
That's cool, man. I love that. Again, that's really nice. I think that's a good way to do it. Like, you're planning it all out, right? You're not just going to haphazardly throw it all together, but actually take the time to do the work, and planning it out really ensures that it's going to be satisfying. We've seen, to just use examples of movies, we see how when planning and with, like, for example, the Marvel movies, how it all kind of works together, but then you take a look at some, like, the Monsterverse or something, the Dark Universe, they try to do the same thing, but it doesn't work out because they didn't do the planning, they didn't do the work ahead of time. So I am happy to see that you're putting that work in.
Oh, well, thank you. It's actually it's quite a plan. I think we're looking at somewhere around, by the time Tetrad Omega is over and the 6 titles are at their completion in phase 1, we're looking at somewhere around 70 issues.
Wow. That's pretty ambitious, man. Wow, that is something. I definitely hope we can get that far and see that whole conclusion come together. By that time, it'll be like this huge, amazing, epic thing. I can just imagine, like, at that point you'll have trade paperbacks. You know what I mean? Instead of just single issues. So that'll be cool too. You'll have tons of trades people can catch up on. So yeah, that's pretty exciting, man.
Yeah, there'll be. the current plan is this, that there are 6 titles altogether, and each of those are going to have around 10 issues each.
Okay. And those
And
will be
then,
releasing roughly around the same, similar time frames.
right.
Interesting.
And then I'm thinking, what I'm thinking with Tetra Omega is, because it's such a big event and it's so many issues long, I'm thinking maybe it would be best to just do that in trade form. So there would be another trade for that.
Smart. Yeah, that's a pretty good idea. I think that would be a cool way to do it. Now, real quick on a side note, I tried to bring this up, looking for this picture earlier. Is this, I wanted to see if any information on this from you. But is this guy here, is this Patrick O'Leary?
That's Patrick O'Leary, yes.
Nice. I had a feeling. Something about those crazy eyes. He looks like he would. You do not want to meet him in a dark alley. Let's say that.
No, that you do not. That you do not. Actually, things really start picking up. That's that image there is from the cover of Gallowsman #2.
Oh, nice, very nice. It's a great cover. And you got that. Oh, and you got the blood moon behind it.
Yeah,
I'm making the connections. That's cool. It's interesting. So blood. Obviously we talked a little bit earlier. I think it was before the stream started, about your icon there and how really represent Omen Comics. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. A little bit more there.
Yeah, sure. I when I came up with the name Omen Comics, I wanted to come up with a symbol that just screamed the word omen. So I was thinking about certain things that signified that were omens, and the one symbol that I think really stands out above the rest of them is a blood moon. I mean, what more than a blood moon screams the word omen?
Yeah, that's very true. It's very iconic. It sticks with you in your mind. You know what I mean? And so those are some of the, obviously these are some of the characters that you talked about already, but another one you mentioned was Michael Nero, and I want to bring him up. He's a cool guy. He's the one who really kind of gave me some John Constantine vibes with him. And
right.
I'm sure now that I know you're a big fan, I'm sure that's where it was inspired by.
Actually, you would think so, but that's that's only like partially true. The biggest inspiration for Michael Nero was actually Sherlock Holmes.
Really? Huh.
What I wanted was I read the book Hound of the Baskervilles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in that we get to see how Sherlock Holmes deals with the supernatural. And I really liked that idea, and I wanted to explore it. What I wanted was to create a punk rock Sherlock Holmes that had some kind of paranormal ability, and I came up with the third sight, and that is the ability to see on all planes of existence at once.
So he's like, he can see the multi-dimensions.
Yes, he can. He can see. He can see the other side. He can see the other world. He can see. He can, for instance, one of his big issues is that he's tortured by this. He constantly sees and hears some very traumatic, nightmarish things from the various creatures that exist in these other worlds. And he basically has to pretend like everything's fine and he's not freaking out about it. But it also leads to what Sherlock Holmes calls the 7% solution. Yes, and so Michael Nero is a drug addict.
Oh, interesting.
So I mean, there's a little bit of Constantine in there, but like I said,
more Sherlock Holmes.
More Sherlock Holmes, yeah.
That's cool, man.
Michael Nero also has an IQ of 160.
And then who's his companion there?
White Druid is actually the Celtic god Lugh, spelled Lugh. I used him specifically because, well, I'm Irish and I wanted to use Celtic mythology. But yeah, he is one of the Fomorian and Tuatha De Danann gods, and he is thousands of years old, and he is the Omenverse's equivalent to a sorcerer supreme.
So in a sense, kind of like a Merlin.
Actually, without going into too much detail, he was Merlin.
Well, there we go.
There you go.
That's funny, man.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
they actually have a kind of a I guess like a father-son type relationship.
kind of a dynamic going on.
Right, where Lugh is definitely the Michael Nero's father figure, and so they tend to be protective of each other and supportive of one another. Really, they both are kind of dependent on each other for functionality with all the stuff they're going through.
And so they're not related by blood, though.
No, not at all.
Interesting. Well, it sounds like the dude on the right is probably really old.
Thousands and thousands of years old.
Probably has some of the best, wisest advice of all time.
He looks pretty wise, dude. Kind of looks like the dude a little bit. You know what I mean?
I could see it.
Some Jeff Bridges action going on here.
A little bit.
Like,
I can see that.
Like Jeff Bridges, though. Not like, that's insane. Have you ever thought about who you'd want to be like what actors you'd want to play your characters?
Actually, when I was the only one I really thought about specifically was Michael Nero, and in my head I was picturing Billy Idol.
Interesting. Okay, I could totally see that. Yeah. Similar vibes there.
But no, I don't know. I don't know much about who I'd want to play these. I haven't put a whole lot of thought into that.
No worries. But we've been, of course, we've been talking a lot about the Omen comics, but there are some comics coming out and out from Revelation Comics as well. And
Yes.
so I thought maybe we could talk about them. Let me pull up this one here. This one is a really interesting one. This one caught my eye just because it definitely feels like it stands out from the rest. Obviously it's not part of the Omenverse, so it really does feel like it has a unique feel to it, which I think is really cool. Which is the Insurrection Comic.
Ah, yes.
That one, not this one.
That one is actually pretty dear to me. It was actually the story was created by my artist Tosin.
Really?
And I scripted it because while he's really good at coming up with stories and drawing the pictures, scripting is difficult for him. And so I basically just kind of polished up what he wrote. But essentially, you got a guy who used to be part of the army there that in the middle of battle he got overcome by fear and he fled, and so he spends the rest of his time trying to make up for his cowardice by dealing with the insurrections going on in Nigeria, a specific one that involves a group that attacked his particular unit. But it's meant to reflect what life is like in Nigeria with You know, every week there's a new warlord rising up, wanting to rescue Nigeria. You know, they all think they have the vision, and they all believe they're the hand of God, and so they don't have any qualms doing some of the most atrocious, vile, evil things in the world to people, in the name of serving their country and their God. And this is it. Insurrection really reflects what it's like to be in there, to deal with that.
Kind of taking a step back from the supernatural and showing a more human horror, as it were.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I really like that, because it's even kind of points towards what the actual name or not name, the actual meaning for what revelation is kind of seeing anew from something that you've looked at many times, but in a sense, looking at it from a different perspective in an enlightening way.
Pretty smart, yeah. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, that's really kind of interesting. I like that too, because they're really thinking about that further than, you know, Omen Comics kind of plays into that whole idea of omens and the supernatural, whereas, like, you know, like Matt was saying with Revelations, it's that revelatory idea and looking at maybe new subjects each time and new stories, new characters, and you know, learning about these different situations. So that is pretty cool. And I like that topic too. It's so personal to your artist too, you know.
It is. I tell you, it like recently, the president of Nigeria was going around killing citizens that live in Nigeria.
Jeez.
Imagine that if our president was going around killing people that lived like American citizens.
Yeah, really. That would never stand here. You know what I mean?
Right. But that's
definitely
that's everyday life over there.
Damn. Yeah, that's crazy.
Really, yeah, I really think while this book is very poignant, I think it's also an eye opener.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, a whole bunch of people probably don't even know about this kind of stuff because it just doesn't get talked about, you know, in the news or anything. Just, you know, like you said, it's become so normalized. They don't even talk about it anymore. Yeah, that's crazy. And then the other Revelations comic you have out is Blitz. And what can you tell us about Blitz?
Yeah, that is Steve Sellers' baby.
Really?
Yeah. He had been working on this character for a while. He has his own little universe of characters.
Okay, nice. So he's doing his own Blitz universe kind of thing.
Yeah. That's why that's what it says. If you notice on the cover there, it says Blitzverse. Yeah. He's gonna deal it out slowly, a little bit at a time, but there's a whole universe of characters he plans on unloading there.
Oh, that's fun.
And one thing that is nice about Blitz that is not the case with all the rest of our titles is that Blitz is an all ages title.
Oh, interesting. That is kind of nice. Yeah, kind of diversifying and offerings for the younger readers there, who perhaps can't take some of the more intense horror of Omen comics.
Right, I've definitely used that at signings and stuff. You know,
nice.
People come in with their kids and like,
oh yeah,
like,
oh yeah.
You probably shouldn't read these, but you can read this one.
Oh yeah, we totally know that. Yeah, it does exactly right. When we do the same, you know, when we're at conventions and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, you have a kid with you, you need some friendly stuff. Here's our all ages titles over here. You can check out these ones. You know.
Yeah,
so that's a great way to do it. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, and that's one thing I'm really grateful about having Steve with me. He is able to write stuff like that. I honestly don't think I'm capable of writing family friendly stuff.
You would have to probably work pretty hard and stretch muscles.
Right.
That's very understandable. I typically think that I don't think I can write an all age story.
Yeah, it sounds easy to think. I remember one time I was going to sit down and like children's I couldn't figure out how to approach it. I couldn't really figure it out. So I totally get that. Yeah.
I know that, like, I tried to White Druid and Michael Nero is about as close to that as Omen Comics gets. That one tends to be a little bit more friendly, but even that, I sold that book to a teenage boy, and his mom was not happy about that. She's like,
really?
He says damn, and he's smoking, and there's demons, and
well, she might not like Vertigo comics then.
right?
Oh no, she's sure not. Oh, that's hilarious. So it's safe to say that your comics are not approved by the Comics Code Authority.
No. No, definitely not code approved.
Oh, that's funny. Well, that's great though. I like that you have a little bit for everyone here. With Blitz, kind of. And what's cool with that too is like, readers could younger readers could start with Blitz, but as they get older, they could, move on to the Omen Comics, Revelation Comics, as those become more age appropriate for them as well.
Right.
So it's a good jumping off point, I feel like.
I like to say that Omen Comics, I figure you got to be at least 13 to read those.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. At least, I feel like over the years, I feel like ratings have changed, especially with comics and books and stuff. I feel like before something that may have been, not appropriate. Like I feel like I don't know. Maybe I'm off on this, but I feel like teenagers are able to see, experience, read, handle things a lot more than they used to let them. I don't know. Maybe that's just my take on it, but just what I've seen in comics, I'm like, oh man. I was like reading a book the other day in comics, like, you can put this in a T-rated comic? Huh, I did not know that.
Right.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's
well, yeah, I do agree that a lot of things have changed over the years, and that's probably because when you look at the other side, there's far more worse things that they're showing than what we show.
True. That's true. I think these days most of the distributors and stuff of comics, they mostly just care about like the ultra hyper-sexualized stuff. Like violence and swearing isn't as big of a deal anymore. I think it's a nudity and sexualization. That's at least what I can tell from reading up on their guidelines and stuff.
Right. I'm not really. I don't actually intend to do this, but people being naked seems to come up in the Omenverse. Like for instance, Sarah Baton killing Jared Lanawar. There's sex magic going on there. But at the same time, we're not showing anything. Most of the stuff is suggestive. I like to do stuff like in Omen, we got Frank laying out on a gurney, and he's naked. But like in the image where you see him laying there, there's a doctor that's bent over his bed, covering up any inappropriate parts. I like to do stuff like that where you could tell that the person's naked, but we're not going to show anything.
Okay, yeah. By the way, I just wanted to point on the chat here. News Star Production says those damn smoking demons. Yeah.
Those are the worst kind.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. Now, there's tons of titles coming out. Those are just some of the titles that'll be coming out soon. Do you have any other titles or comics that you want to tease or anything of that nature, perhaps?
Well, there is Guardians of a Lamb.
Ooh, can we show maybe? I think you have a image out on Twitter for that one, right? That we might be able to show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, here's a good one. That's gonna be a fun title. Yeah, let's put this up on the screen here. We were just going over the scripts actually for this one the other day. So this is kind of cool. We got quite the ragtag crew here. Tell us about the Guardians of Lamb.
Well, Let's give you we'll give you the abridged version here. It's got now the Omenverse, when I created it, is an amalgamation of the various myths from around the world, legends, folklore, certain classic literature and religious texts like the Divine Comedy, the Book of Enoch, the Canterbury Tales, Paradise Lost, that kind of stuff. But so what that means is that history in Omen Comics is not the same history you are familiar with, and that is relevant because Guardians of Alayam is a time travel book.
Really?
Yeah. You got a group of people that are a motley crew. They would not naturally be together. But they get caught in a situation where the world tree, the Alayam tree, has been splintered because of the death of a god, and they're responsible for it.
They killed a god?
They killed a god,
oh,
yes.
God.
And so consequently, they are and the angel Uriel, who is over time, charges them with fixing the Alayam tree, repairing it, and watching over it under threat of eternal damnation.
So they're not necessarily doing this out of their own free will, perhaps, I guess you could say.
No. In fact, you see
they're
that
kind of like the Suicide Squad, man, of time travel.
they are kind of like that, yeah.
That's hilarious, yeah. No, I do. It's interesting, like the to me, looking at knowing it's a time travel thing, they look like they're all out of different time periods. Is that right?
No. They're all from the Guardians of Alayam formed 2,000 years ago around the death of Jesus.
Right, and that's kind of where we pick up. I think there's some historical stuff that you're playing with, some events that people will be familiar with that you're kind of taking your own twist on.
Right, but it's a story you're familiar with, but there are certain twists because
yes.
I don't know how much you know about mythology in general, but most mythologies assume that they're the only gods.
Totally.
They assume that they're the ones that created the universe and no other gods exist. So in order to get them all to actually come together in an amalgamated universe, I had to do a lot of changing, a lot of switching around. And well, you're going to see that things go a little bit differently, even situations you might be familiar with.
Yeah, it's interesting because you can kind of say almost like, when you have mythologies and stuff, like you said, they're kind of separated. But this one is like legend is myth, is history, is present. It's like it's all rolled into one.
Yes.
Which is something that's so unique.
And just for any, I don't know, religious nuts that might be out there, this is not God in this universe. El is not the God you're familiar with. Jesus is not the guy you might be familiar with if you're, say, really heavy into Bible reading.
I see. So you're still taking your own liberties with the stories and characters a little bit.
Yeah. I'm taking the core idea and I'm trying to keep it as true as I can to the concept, but certain things just had to be changed.
So for ease of story or making things mesh together. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine kind of throw every world religion, mythology, like all this together. It would be like there's gonna be some places where you're gonna have to put, fill in the gaps or put some glue over here and make sure it's all holding together. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's very cool. This should be an interesting title. Do you have any plans for this one? Anything of that nature?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Any kind of plans for a release or maybe some crowdfunding? Do you have any ideas on?
It is currently being drawn right now.
Oh, okay, very cool.
And so as soon as it's drawn up, it's getting lettered, and then we're going to pre-launch.
Very nice. Going straight into it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, that's awesome. I definitely like the variety of comics that you have. Like, are they? Would you say they're all horror? Like, is this another horror title?
No, and I don't want to give the impression that they're all horror comics.
Oh, really?
It's I like to say it's blended with horror.
Mm.
There are horror elements and horror aspects, but it's not straight horror.
So you could say they're more mature comics, so to speak.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Actually, my first attempt at straight horror will be coming out from Revelation Comics. It's a title called Satyr.
Oh, really? So
That's
even something like Gallows Man isn't just a one-to-one horror.
No. Like I said, my Omen Comics they certainly have elements of horror, and there are a lot of horror aspects to it, but it's not just
Everything.
Straight up horror. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. But you have your first more traditional horror story coming out from Revelation.
Yes, called Satyr. Satyr is a Norse word for like magic.
Ah, okay.
Essentially, a Viking king goes on a raid. It ends up going really bad for him. He ends up calling on Odin for help, and Odin sends him a vulva, which is a Norse witch. And this vulva and the king end up falling in love with each other. But the problem is that the king is married and has a whole other life back in Denmark.
Oh gosh.
So he tells her that he's going to go back to his wife, and well, let's just say they say hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Well, don't piss off a witch.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good lesson to know.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh my gosh. Now, you mind if I pull this image up here? I grabbed this from Twitter. It looks like this could be, is this possibly a mock of what your, trade one of the Seeds of Tetrad Omega would be? Is that something that we can show off here?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
This is a cool one. I like this one. That
is the cover for the first trade.
Oh, nice. Okay, so this is going to be the cover then. That's great.
Yeah, that's good. That collects.
That's really cool.
Omen #1, #2, White Druid, Michael Nero #1, and Gallowsman #1.
Oh, so you okay? I think I'm picking up what you're throwing down here. So instead of doing trades where, like, let's say issues of Michael Nero, you're gonna get like first issues for all the titles.
Well, that's the thing about the Omenverse. It's intended to be read together. If you don't read all the titles, there's stuff you're going to be missing. Gotcha. I mean, you can read individual titles. You can, but there's a greater portion of the story you're going to be missing if you're only sticking with one or two titles.
That's a cool way to do it. I really like that, where you're getting that. When you pick up the trade, you're getting that combined experience where you don't have to pick up every single issue. You get it all in one. You're getting that complete story, and then you can move on. You can wait for the next trade if you want, or you can pick up the single issues from there. But I think that's a great introduction for people to get into your universe. And of course, you get this awesome cover here with some of your characters.
But I mean, it's not. We're not just doing it that way. I also want to release like like about 4 issues. Every 4 issues in each title, I want to do a trade.
Okay, so there'll be a variety of ways for people to pick up and read the story.
For sure, for sure.
Okay.
But the Omenverse title specifically is for those who want to get the whole story.
Very nice. And again, just really cool art here. Tosin is doing some awesome work. It's really impressive too. He does all the line work, the coloring. It's all really well done.
Yeah, he blows me away every time. And what baffles me is this: I look at how great his art is, and yet every time he comes to me with the latest thing he's done, it's better than the last.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, he improves all the time.
He seems like he's really dedicated to his craft. Like honestly, like he seems like he puts in a lot of work, and you guys already have so many titles out already, so that is really cool to see.
Yeah,
now, as we start wrapping up here towards the end of our time on our interview, is there anything that you could tease us about the future for Omen Comics and Revelation Comics? Anything you want to share with people out there?
Well, yeah, I mean, we got with Omen Comics, we got 3 brand new titles coming out. Besides besides White Druid, Michael Nero, Gallowsman, and Omen, we got 3 brand new titles coming out, and that is one, Guardians of a Lamb. We talked about that one, but then there's also Dragon Girl Albino Warrior, which deals with Chinese prophecy, and kind of the dragon mythology. And then there's one that is called Dark Oracles, and that one is going to be actually written by me and Steve.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we're each going to do a story in it. It's going to be like each issue of Dark Oracles is going to have 2 stories in it, one by me and one by Steve, and it's going to cover all of the little side stories that go with the comics that we can't fit into the main titles fluidly.
Okay. Well, that should be cool. Yeah, that should be interesting for you guys collaborating on. Is that the first kind of collaboration you guys have done together?
Oh no! Me and Steve are collaborating on a lot of stuff. Even like with Guardians of a Lamb, for instance, and with White Druid, Michael Nero. Me and him basically work on those together. We work on the plot, we work on characters and whatnot. It's definitely a collaboration. I may create the characters, like come up with them, but Steve is really one of the guys that helps me refine them.
Nice. He's essential to the whole process then.
Oh, there isn't a single person on Omen Comics creative team that isn't essential.
That's awesome. Yeah, again, I love to see that kind of camaraderie and you guys all kind of coming together to make this stuff happen. It's just such a cool thing when you get a great team that works so well together. Like that is such a really is something that you want to hold on to. That is.
I say this. I say this all the time. I really work with an amazing group of people. This Omen Comics is a well-oiled machine, and it is so because of the people I work with.
Well, hey, it certainly shows it.
Yeah, it definitely shows through that final product, and you guys are putting out some really awesome comics. I'm super excited. Yeah. We're going to be, for those who don't know, obviously, we mentioned this before, but Michael recently signed with us onto the Wikid Publishing team, and we're going to be releasing some of their comics, here in just very shortly. Hopefully, we're going to be starting the proofing process here in the next week or so, and then hopefully either by the end of this next or early next month, we'll be having those books out and ready for people to pick up. So we're very excited for that as well. So keep your eyes out for all the cool stuff coming from Michael and Revelation Comics and Omen Comics. And of course, keep your eyes peeled for the print book heading to our store soon. And where can people find you online, just in case they want to find out all the stuff that you've got going on?
Oh well, we have a Patreon account. We also have Omenverse.com. We're also on Twitter at Comics Omen, and we're also on Facebook at Omen Comics, and Revelation Comics is on both of those as well.
Very nice. And so you said you guys have a Patreon, is that right?
Yes, we do.
What's that one listed? Is that under Omen Comics?
Yes.
Very nice. Let me put that up there so people can go check it out and get some cool behind-the-scenes stuff and help support all these awesome comics. That's always a really important thing and much appreciated. Really does help out a lot.
There
So,
it is.
Go check that out.
We do lots of insider stuff on that Patreon page.
Nice.
Basically, if something's going on, whether it's behind the scenes or in front of the scenes, my patrons know about it because I tell them.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah, that's kind of engagement you want with the Patreon. So that's great. And you're gonna be the first to know it if you guys sign up for that. So please go check it out. If you guys have some spare bucks, please pass them his way. I know that's gonna help out a lot. And, it always is appreciated from our creators. And of course, follow him on Twitter as well, if you can. And yeah, I'm really excited that we really loved everything. When we first saw your comics, we just fell in love with the images, the world, characters, and we just knew that we wanted to work with you. And so it's just been really great, bring you onto the team, and it'll be really interesting and really exciting to see where we go from here.
Thanks, man. I'm really happy to be here. I'm really proud to be part of the team.
That's great, man. Yes. And please go check out all the stuff again, please. I really love it, and I think you guys are gonna like it too. So check it out, see if there's something that you guys like. I know some of the comics are on digital already, so go follow them on Twitter, and you can get all the links there to get some of the digitals. And again, check out our website for when we release that print version. And thank you again so much, Michael, for joining us today. This has been a Wikid Creator Interview, and we will see you guys on a future episode.